I'm Sophie Little and you're watching Xanas Media introducing Norwich Sound and Vision Live 2013. So this is the official first day of the festival, and what a day it's been. The various conferences began this morning with panels on film and television, music and interactive media, and the live gigs are happening all over the city. So get on the Norwich Sound and Vision website if you're not already to check them out. And you can also get in touch with us on Twitter @XanasMedia or #XanasMedia. Well, coming up on tonight's show, we have interviews with singer-songwriter Damian Flynn. The BioBeats team tell us about their amazing new technology, and we go inside the SIDFO conference. And also joining us live in the studio, we have Jeremy Silver to talk about music on the internet. We also have We Were Evergreen, who are an upbeat French trio playing indie electropop. And we've got a great show for you in store. So first up on tonight's show, a real treat, an artist. Being an artist these days, it's actually pretty hard to find your footing in the music industry without being signed to a major record label. But the Irish-born singer and songwriter Damian Flynn has done just that. He's only got his guitar, his lyrical skill and a passion for music, but he creates rousing and memorable melodies that come straight from the heart.
Stonecutter's lover took my heart.
I always find it very difficult to describe my music, and a lot of people do. I think when you play live and you have a guitar and you're singing, you're a singer-songwriter, and that's going to be taken from a few places. I came to music through writing. I picked up a guitar and I started writing before I even learned anything else. Being brought up in Ireland, you listen to a certain type of music when you're very young. My parents certainly listened to a lot of Irish music. It's not kind of Irish folky, not fiddly-diddly stuff, but kind of from American folk like Tom Paxton and Woody Guthrie up to Bob Dylan. And there was a lot of stuff like that going on in Ireland as well, so a lot of deep-voiced Irish male singers.
It's cold inside.
Luckily, 2 gigs this week, which is really great. Hopefully just meet a lot of people who are doing music and interested in listening to music. Yeah, I'm really excited to play Norwich Sound and Vision. I know somebody really well who's part of organising the event, and she was good enough to get me involved playing, which is great. And yeah, I've been to Norwich a few times, and the community spirit in the music here is something I really aspire to in London, actually.
Yeah, really beautiful songwriting, gorgeous voice.
He was really committed, he grabbed people's attention, his songs and singing were really good. And I think that was a really good way to kick off Norwich Sound and Vision.
I'm always just more and more enthusiastic about music, about new music that I find and listen to, and excuse me, certainly about my own music. Yeah, putting more and more time to it and getting better and better at it. A producer I just met recently, and I'm going to record an EP, kind of 4 or 5 tracks, in the last week of October, which is only a few weeks away as well. So.
Thank you, that was called The Ride.
That was the wonderful Damian Flynn. Now here in the studio is my first live guest of the evening, Jeremy Silver. Jeremy is chairman at Music Metric, Music Glue and Goland Media Ventures. He's going to be talking to us about 2 of my favourite things, music and the internet. How about you, Jeremy? Are your 2 favourite things?
They're things I've spent an awful lot of time being interested in, so I guess they're amongst my favourites, yes.
Well, let's start with music. How did you get started in the music industry?
My first job actually was at the National Sound Archive,
right,
which was part of the British Library, and they had to take copies of every sound recording that was released in the country, and so I started meeting people from record companies to persuade them to give them to the archive.
OK, where did it go from there then?
And then I went and worked at the BPI,
yeah,
the trade association for all the record companies, where I had to defend the price of CDs at the time, because they were too expensive. And then I went to Virgin Records, where I was head of press for a couple of years.
Okay.
And that's where I started sort of getting the internet bug,
right,
rather early.
So once you got the internet bug, how did that change not just your career, but the music industry at the time?
It didn't change the music industry very much at all to start off with. In fact, I spent a lot of time trying to persuade people that they should change because the internet was going to make a big difference in their lives. And everyone sort of said to me, "That's cool, Jeremy, but it's the future, man. So you take care of it and don't worry about it." And then, of course, it did change things dramatically, which was really when Napster hit, which was 1999. And the moment that Napster hit, everything changed because suddenly all the music in the world was available for free. And every major record company in the world was very worried.
What kind of problems did you recognise would arise for artists, especially at that point?
Well, I think actually, in a way, it wasn't obvious that there were going to be problems for artists at that point, because this was very much about the product's end and the sort of the business end of things. And in some respects, the degree of impact and therefore the amount of money that the record companies had to play with hadn't reduced yet. It was going to, and that would impact artists. But at that point, it was cool and exciting.
And did you know at that point that that was the way it was going to go? Or could it have gone any way at that point in everyone's minds?
No, I think I kind of realised that this was going to be a brilliant way of distributing music.
Yeah.
And that, if you could make that transition, then it'd be amazing. And of course, it was a brilliant, as it is, it's a brilliant way of communicating direct with fans. So for artists, actually, to start off with, I think it was all plus. It was all about creating great relationships. It's only later that it started getting more difficult.
So accessing music online has changed a lot since Napster. How do you think it's changed most importantly? What moment did you think it's suddenly going to be huge and this is going to be the be-all and end-all?
I'm not sure if there was one moment, but I think when it was obvious that there were lots of new ways in which artists could reach fans, when it was obvious that suddenly you didn't necessarily need a record company to start building a fan base, that you could create a community, that you could have a relationship with fans, they'd talk back to you, and that the more you did that, the more they loved it and the more you could progress. I think that's what's changed everything. Yeah. And it's still really hard, and there's still, I think it's a paradox really, because the barriers to entry have dropped, so it's much easier to start a band and to start to have an audience. But because of that, there are far more bands around than there have ever been, and so there's much more competition. And
do you think there's too much choice out there now when it comes to maybe even radio stations selecting songs, or just the user trying to find music that they like?
I think there are lots and lots of people looking at how to help us all discover new bands and to try and recommend acts to us. So Music Metric, for example, spends a lot of time looking at social media activity, and we can demonstrate from social media behaviour which fans are accelerating the most fast around which bands, which bands are engaging most with their fan base, which bands actually are not communicating at all. So there are lots of tools that you can find that I think help people to find the bands that they might like. Yeah. But strangely enough, none of them seem to have quite cracked it yet, so we've still got some way to go.
So can you envisage where it's going to go? Do you have any idea personally yourself?
Well, I think that it is that we're going to get smarter tools, and we're going to get more intelligence in the internet itself that's going to lead us to stuff that we like. But, the thing is that, I don't know about you, but if someone shows me a band that's like the band that I said I liked before, I probably won't like them, because I want something that's different from the one I just liked. Yeah. So that's the thing that's really hard to predict. Okay,
and just out of curiosity, what kind of bands have hit you like that recently? Any bands that have kind of just come along?
Who have I listened to recently that totally blew me away? Now you're putting me on the spot.
Sorry.
I'm just trying to think actually about I listen to a lot of film soundtrack music. Yeah. And I've been listening to Ethiopian pop music from the 1960s, actually.
Really?
Yeah. So, yeah.
You'll have to send me some links.
I will.
Jeremy, thank you ever so much for joining us.
Brilliant. Thank
you.
you.
Great talking to you. Now, next up, our roving reporter Will ventures into the Convergence International Forum to meet the guys behind the John Peel archive. When we first told Will he'd be doing this, his reaction was, "Who's John Peel?" Let's see what he found out.
Hey Norwich Sound and Vision, we're here outside Epic Studios Norwich to find out a little bit more about SIDFO. This year, SIDFO is holding its annual event in Norwich. I was interested in finding out more about the event and who exactly is showcasing at SIDFO.
SIDFO is the Convergence International Digital Forum, and the basic thing behind it is that there is a space for digital content nowadays which is not really being properly served in terms of investment and exchange of ideas. So the idea of SIDFO is that content meets technology meets investment. Previously, all these different sectors didn't get together, and if they did, they spoke different languages. So we think of the alternative title as being Lovies Meet Geeks Meet Suits. Well, during the day of a typical SIDFO, it's a pitching event. So pitches with projects pitch for 7 minutes, and then there's discussion at the round table of the project for another 7 minutes, and this rolls throughout the day. Within that, we also have very short presentations from possible investors, and we like to showcase a couple of projects as well.
26,000 albums, something like 40,000 singles. John was pretty unique, as I'm sure you're all aware, in that he fought to play the records he wanted to play.
John's record collection is one of the most important record collections in the world, and the Space Project is actually allowing people to just have a small insight into what's there.
One of the showcases was the John Peel Archive. So earlier I met up with two of the people behind the project.
Okay, in a nutshell, it's a website you can go to. You can see John's records, which we've started to photograph, and browse through them, get information about them, and in some cases listen to them and see videos about them. And we've started talking to artists who actually made the records and were part of that.
Guitar, jamming good with Weird and Gilly, and the Spiders and Mars. Well, he played a left hand.
We weren't known. I mean, nobody would have known who Ziggy was at that particular time, you know. It was just a John Peel session, and we were just going in there to do a radio show.
So at SIDFO, we're going to be showcasing what the John Peel Archive is. So we're going to show people, you know, the website, the video content that we made, which is 26 interviews with different artists. We're also going to be talking about, hopefully, this next stage of the archive, the record boxes, which is kind of going to be based on a roughly similar model to the David Bowie box that we put together.
Reel-to-reel cassettes.
This is a cultural project and something that we're keen for people to know about and understand and support, and hopefully people didn't think I was too much of a douche, and the project was worthwhile, and they'll be behind it.
But there's no reason on the basis of the collection, which is unique, that there could be significant international interest.
I think really it's just making people aware that the record collection is there. I mean, before John's death, people, in fact, until recently, I'd argue, people didn't necessarily know that John even kept his records. Say, without his influence, without this show and the freedom that he had within the BBC at a time when there was very little other ways of discovering music, quite a lot of the stuff that we know and love today wouldn't necessarily have come to light.
Obviously, it's massively culturally important.
So it's pulling together all of this information online, johnpeelarchive.com. Go check it out.
Joining me now on the sofa are We Were Evergreen. They formed in 2008. They're an indie trio made up of Michael Leo, Fabian Debar and William Surifas, and they play songs with influences that range from French folklore to all sorts, really. They're kind of got an electro-pop twist as well. I don't need to tell you this, though, because here they are as part of Norwich Sound and Vision, as part of the French Act Showcase, performing at Open Club Rooms later on tonight. Hello!
Hi.
Thank you for coming to Norwich.
Thanks for having us.
Have you been before?
Yes, actually,
Yes.
we played the Waterfront a few times.
Three times,
Yeah,
It's
and
our
really,
fourth time.
really enjoyed it.
Have you ever had a chance to walk around the city itself?
Just today.
Really?
Just today, and
It's
it's
lovely. We saw
really
the
nice.
market. There's a market.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you get chips on the market? That's good.
No, we didn't have a chance. We didn't have time enough, but it looks nice.
Okay, so you're a French band, but you're living in London. Tell me the story behind that.
Well, we were living in Paris for 3 years, and then we got the opportunity to play in London for a show, and it just so happened when we played there that there was people there who were interested in having us come back again. So went back to London, and we for about 6 months we were back and forth on the Eurostar.
Yeah.
And then after 6 months we decided there was potential management in London, so we think maybe it's better to just move there and just try it out. And that's what we did.
And was that an easy decision for all of you at that point?
I think so. I don't really remember,
It was. I think it was a step forward. It wasn't easy in the sense that we'd already, again, been there for 3 years in Paris. So we had people who we had an audience. So it wasn't easy, but I think it was a good step forward and a logical
and very exciting as well
thing,
to meet.
More like a challenge.
Yeah. And how have you kind of integrated into the music scene in London? Have you made friends with other bands? Have you got a fan base there now? What's it like?
Yeah, we've met a lot of bands at the beginning. We were quite impressed with the number of fans and musicians around, and we met some friends, and there was also like rock bands which were a bit like impressive for us because we were doing pop, but at the end the audience always came at the end of the gigs to us and say, oh, we really enjoyed it, you should come back. And so
going on the kind of saying you're impressed by rock and stuff, but you've got a really, really interesting sound yourselves, and it's quite like nostalgic and lovely. What inspires you to make music like that? How did that start?
No, I think, well, Michael brings the song, but after I think it's really a mixture of all our influences, and I think we're listening to a lot of different music, so we like to jam a bit and to build some stuff and to try not to do the same as people. You always end up doing it a bit, but I think this is something that we keep us moving maybe forward and mixing a lot of different instruments or influences, and it's a good, also I think a good step for progressing and changing and evolving a bit with the music.
Okay. You've one of your songs, am I right, is being used on a film at the moment, and the film's called Fonzie.
Yes.
And I read a little bit of a synopsis about what happens on it. And it's a bit weird. Do you know much about it? The film itself.
It's actually really
it's
good.
Cool. It's a cool pitch. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I don't want to give too much away to people, but it's about someone who ends up having a lot of babies kind of by accident.
Because he was a sperm donor when he was young, and he didn't know that he fathered about 500 and so children, and so he at one point in his life, all these children try to find out who their father is. And he has to sort of face his consequences of that.
But your music fits on top of that somewhere in there.
Somewhere, yeah.
How does that feel, having your music in that film?
Well, actually, we haven't seen it.
It's not out yet.
Isn't it? Okay, right.
Next month, end of the month.
Okay, you're going to have a special screening to watch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, what's next for you guys anyway?
We just finished to record our first album,
which
is like a big step for us too, and it's going to be released early next year. So that's a proper first.
Massive. That's incredible.
Massive for us.
And did you record that in London?
Yes.
Who did you record it with? Is it with a certain producer? Is it people that you knew before? Or?
It's someone we met, which is called Charlie Andrew.
Okay.
And which we were like a 4 great team during like 2 months or something like that. And it was like, it was really intense.
Yeah, it was really great.
Okay.
Really,
And what can we expect from the album? What's it?
Changes.
Really?
Changes, yeah. It's I think it's probably going to be darker than people would expect from what we've done so far. But I think it's a mixture of all these influences. There's a lot of exotic rhythms, but it's still melancholy and still.
Yeah.
And there's still a blend of like electronic stuff with organic instruments and. Yeah,
a bit of reggae.
A bit of reggae. Wow.
Different stuff.
I'm super excited. You've also got a great history of music videos and visuals. In fact, I think we're going to play a little bit just now, so let's have a look.
Oh my god.
Wow. You've chosen the best one.
Moon boots and fruit juice banging on a water jar. If this is the end, my friend.
What can you tell me about the recording of that then?
That was
a
very
long time ago.
It was our
5
first
years
video.
ago.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun to make. We were in my flat actually, which we emptied out, and we stayed 3 days entirely, just the three of us with the director and 2 other people helping out.
Okay.
Just like almost camping in the flat
Yeah.
for 3
It was
days
great,
doing that.
actually. Good.
3 days doing
3 days of
that.
that.
There was about like
1,000 of pictures.
1,500 pictures just to do the video.
Wasn't
It's
that
really
exhausting?
tiring.
It was exhausting, but actually it was really fun to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you come up with that idea, or did the director come up with it?
Both. I mean, it's like a discussion with
Yeah.
the director.
Yeah. How important is kind of visuals with your music? Because obviously, I'm thinking generally as well about Norwich sound and vision, marrying the two together. Is that
True.
something that happens for you as well?
Yeah, I think we've always worked with collaborations, and at the beginning friends, but now meeting other artists to try to create something together. As the music is in the band, we like to do it outside of it. And for example, the last headline show we've done in London, we've worked with an artist called Mari, who did like some stage settings, like designed with lights inside it.
Wow.
I think we like to take the time also for the music video, you know, to do a proper, to find the good idea for the song, and to have the time to do it properly, to edit it properly, and to have a good result.
Yeah.
Often it goes too fast and you don't have
And
what you
then,
expect. so-
yeah, sometimes a video can be kind of like a second thought to a
Yeah.
song that you need to get
Yeah.
out quickly.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I think that's a really interesting way of doing it. Now, you've played some really amazing gigs in the UK before, with like Ed Sheeran and Emily Sandé as well. What was that like?
That was the same gig.
It was the same gig. Okay, what was it like?
It was for the Q Awards, I think 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And we supported them.
Which is great, like, yeah. Well,
It's
it's
still
a
good
great
opportunity.
venue.
One of the biggest venue we've
Yeah,
done.
it is
Yeah.
amazing. A lot of teenagers as well.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, that was quite impressive.
So you've got the album coming next year as well. What about gigs? Where can we see you? Are you going on tour?
We're gonna do a support tour of villagers in November.
Okay.
And so we're gonna also tour the UK February or March.
Yeah.
So we normally go back to Norwich for that. So.
Yeah.
Come back,
We'll see you again.
please.
Please to come
I'll
back.
come with you when you go around the market this time, and we'll have
Yeah,
chips.
great.
That sounds good. Thank you so much for coming in and
Thank
talking
you.
to
Thanks for having
us.
us. It's great.
That's We Were Evergreen. Now, next up, we have Dr. David Plans and Travis Lee Street, who held a panel today on the link between technology and health. Together, they're an innovative new company called BioBeats, and the story behind the formation of the company is really quite incredible, so I'm going to let you see for yourselves.
You should be dead.
This is a forensic toe tag. It was given to me by a nurse at Brussels airport because I passed out and then flatlined. She said, "You suits usually arrive dead, and this is a rare chance I get to tell you what I think. And what I think is you should change your life." And I think I'm not alone. I wanted to take my background in music and in computer science and build tools that would help people connect with their bodies and understand stress better. So the first thing we built was a prototype that turned brainwaves into music. And all we wanted was to give you a visual and a sonic feedback on whether you were managing to focus and calm down. You know, like I'm gonna pitch to everybody. But this is one guy I really wanted to pitch to, and I knew he wouldn't give me the time.
I saw the opportunity there, but definitely not the way he was doing it. And he was focusing on the wrong organ. My very specific challenge to David was take the iPhone, hack the optical sensor, the camera, and by putting your finger on it, I want to see the waveform of my heart on the screen. David sent me an application from London, and I put my finger on the back of the camera. I could see the waveform of my heart, and he sonified my heartbeat through a bass. And for the first time, I listened to the bass kick of my heart. Just that was moving. And then he turned it into jungle UK house music. And I had no reaction but to dance. I would jump for joy, and as I jumped for joy, the heart rate accelerated. And I watched it, and the music accelerated, and the bass accelerated. That was the moment. I had to be a part of it.
We developed an app called Pulse, which just sonifies the heart. It makes music out of the heart data. But We made it for a festival called South by Southwest, and we fed a few thousand people's heartbeats into a DJ booth and visualized and sonified what was happening into a DJ set. There's apps out there that take your heart rate, and we wanted to do something better because we're musicians and programmers, and we thought, why not do something else than just tell people what their heart rate is? It's a uniquely boring thing to do.
Well, Pulse is only one of 5 products that we're currently building. In terms of just getting out there, we've done pretty well so far. We were lucky enough to get into the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, TechCrunch, GigaOM, some of the biggest news outlets in the world. And yeah, it's just been kind of spiraling from there. So we do travel around a lot. And have little booths and, go to conferences and show people how they can make music out of their heartbeat. But we're really interested in the clinical aspects of it.
And where are we going to be, and how is it going to make us healthier?
Well, I mean, there's an easy answer to that. The NHS is going to run out of money by 2020. We came down to Norwich Sound and Vision because they were having a very interesting panel on the intersection between tech and health. The people who were invited to this panel were part of a technology strategy board initiative in collaboration with I See Tomorrow, the University College London, Bupa, the British Medical Journal, and people like that.
I have a special place in my heart for Norwich, and quite specifically for Sync Norwich, which is the Norwich tech community, and all the work that they've been doing over the past 2 years. And Juliana, who runs a great new startup called Superpass, we've been friends for a while, and she asked me to come chair a panel.
Pretty soon you'll see solutions embedded into systems like the NHS that look at data produced by the human body in 2 ways. One is to prevent an individual from going into a condition that needs treatment, and the second is to use that individual's data pooled with other millions of individuals for the algorithms to have a much more refined idea of what that condition could be potentially.
The information contained in the beats of our heart has the power to change everything.
Well, what a fantastic story there from the BioBeats team. Now it's the time of the show where I get to catch up with you on Twitter, so let's see what you had to say. It's Elizabeth has asked me on Twitter, if you could meet any singer or band, dead or alive, and ask one question, what would it be? I've had a bit of a think about this, and I could have gone with like Kurt Cobain from Nirvana and asked him why he did what he did and all that sort of stuff. But no, I'm going with someone alive. I've decided Elton John. I want to meet Elton John. And I want to ask him if he could relive any moment of his career or life so far, what would that moment be? I would love to know that. And also, I might ask him to sing to me as well. Don't know which question is more important. Anyway, thanks ever so much if you've been in touch. And remember, your voice can be part of this show over the next couple of shows. We want to hear from you, so tweet us at Xanas Media or hashtag Xanas Media and we'll pick them up. Another great show with some really great guests as well, so thank you very much. But don't head off just yet, because here's a preview of what's coming up later. Tonight you can see Ghost Poet, who's on at Norwich Arts Centre, the lovely We Were Evergreen are at Open, and Abby Wade, who's going to be performing at the Birdcage. And for you budding comedians, why not go and watch the panel on producing comedy and conversation at Cinema City? And for game developers out there, take a look even at getting your game noticed. That's at Epic Studios tomorrow. And remember, you can get your tickets for all of the acts online on the Norwich Sound and Vision website, which you might be on right now, or you can tweet us at Xanas Media or hashtag Xanas Media. And stay tuned right now online for live coverage of tonight. Enjoy the festival.